Chapter 7 of Somme Battle Stories by Alec John Dawson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 7. The Cockney Fighter. Among the wounded who arrived recently at Southampton, one found both officers and men whose experiences since July 1st may be described as unique in all the world's history of war. These are men who went over the sticks at 7:30 a.m. on July 1st and have been fighting at one point or another in the present great offensive north of the Somme ever since. There are, of course, magnificent soldiers in the French army who have been through an even longer period of fighting at Verdun, and the fighting before Verdun was probably the most intense recorded in history up to that time. But, as a French officer stated only the other day, after returning wounded from the south of Péronne, the British part in the Somme offensive has been Verdun magnified, Verdun on a bigger scale. Another French officer has stated that the artillery fire in some portions of this line has been more terrible, more intense, more devastating than the worst seen at Verdun. When one carefully thinks out what the day-to-day and night-to-night fighting has been between Auteuil and Guillemont since July 1st, and then comes to talk to a soldier who has actually been through the whole of it, one marvels that any ordinary 20th century human being could possibly survive such a month so spent. One talked with many, on the landing stage, who not only have survived it, but can jest about it and talk with indomitable cheeriness about getting back to it before the show's over. Private A of the will retain always a prominent place in my gallery of such wounded heroes who have not the faintest notion that there is anything heroic about them. He is a Cockney of the Cockneys. I have met his like in the ranks of the old army, the territorials, and the new armies, but never certainly one who has shown such months as Private A has just lived through, never before this year. Fed up? What are, sirs? Fed up, sir? Not likely. Why, we're just beginning to like it, but I bet Mr. Boche is getting a bit fed up. Least, some er them, as I saw they was, right up to the bloomin' neck, as you might say, sir. But I feel there is something terribly inadequate about my attempt to reproduce Private A's racy vernacular. Also, I cannot hope to convey on paper any conception of the incorrigibly humorous devilry in the man's mobile face. Brave? I would say he was braver than a stoat, and that may mean something to anyone who has known a stoat defy him and his stick on a footpath, who has been deliberately challenged, as I have been, to mortal combat with a stoat over the body of a crippled field mouse. Private A got his quietus in Delville Wood. 3 separate times before, after July 1st, he was slightly wounded and received all the attention he would accept at advanced field dressing stations. In Delville Wood he went on fighting for a good time with considerable wounds in left shoulder and arm, and only gave out when rendered perfectly helpless by a smashed ankle and 2 slight head wounds. To 'ear the why they talks about that Devil's Wood, you'd think there was somethin' wrong about the bloomin' place. For me, I like the in and out close work, I do, better'n this bloomin' extended work done in the open with the bloomin' typewriters chick-clackin' till you can't hear yourself speak, and they can't hardly help hittin' yer either. Same's it was at Monterbang and comin' up Longueville. Now, give me the in and out work I say every time. You do get a bit o' fun for your money in a place like Devil's Wood. I've done a bit o' scrappin' down at Wonderland, I have, and when my officer gave me a little trench dagger what fitted on me left and like a knuckle buster, he had 2 or 3 of 'em, he had, why, I tell you it was a little bit of orlight for me. There's somethin' to keep a man amused about that sort of fightin', not like this open order work where you never knows who's it's sure. I didn't 'arf walk into them Boches when we rushed 'em in the wood, not 'arf I didn't. "Time, gentlemen," I used to say. Much I cared about their toastin' forks once I could get close in. You let me get close in, sir, same's we did in Devil's Wood, time and time again, and I'll back myself to serve you up Boches fast as you can open oysters. No, I've got no fault to find with Devil's Wood. If only a R.E. fatigue party could a got in there first and done a bit o' clean-up, as you might say, got some o' the wood and wire and rubbish and that out of the way, and just levelled it up a bit, why, you couldn't have asked for a nicer plice for a scrap. What do I think of Master Boche? He's all right, once you get to know his little tricks, the blighter. He's got some terribly dirty little tricks, but he's a sticker, you know, sir. Yes, he's a sticker, all right, especially with a machine gun. He don't count once you can land him one on the point o' the jaw. The sight o' steel makes him proper sick. You oughter be quick as a flash once you get up to him, or he'll up with his hands, and then you mustn't touch the beggar, although you know bloomin' well that if you happen to stumble or give him half a chance, he'll stick yer when you're not lookin', almost the only time he will, that is. But he's a pretty good soldier at shootin' ranges. The push? The push is all right, sir. Take it a bit er time, you know, to flatten him out proper, but he's goin' to be flattened all right, not 'arf he ain't. Did I get any sleep last month? Lord bless ye, yes, sir. I can't get on without me sleep. We used to doss it in shell holes, any old plice. Soon got used to that. 'Ad me tea too, sir, most afternoons I did. Bit of a relish with it, too, when we got to a Boche trench. I'd say that for the Boches their dugouts is prime. Generally always find a bit er somethin' tasty in a Boche dugout, and if yer strike a officer's dugout, it's a Lord Mayor's banquet for certain. It is impossible for me to begin to do justice to Private A on paper. I wish he could meet some of our literary masters of Cockney humour, for though what I am able to quote may not faintly indicate it, men like this are perfectly wonderful in their attitude toward the great things they have seen and done. This man, who is only one among thousands, has moved and lived and had his hourly being, night and day for many weeks past, in a nearer approach to the old writer's dream of hell than anything ever previously seen on earth. Not for an hour in all that time has he been out of reach of gunfire, or away from the maniacal den, the murderous fury of it all. He is now pretty badly cut about, and has lost a lot of blood, but he hardly ever opens his mouth without emitting a jest of some kind. He talks cheerily of getting back into the Inferno, and very probably will be back there before very many weeks have passed. As for Delville, which several officers have told me was the most awful and bloody shambles of the whole terrific series, he says that bar its untidiness, so to say, you couldn't have asked for a nicer plice for a scrap. If the Kaiser could produce many such soldiers as this, well, the war would last a very long time. Myself, I greatly doubt if the All-Highest could produce one such among all his legions; and I have talked with many scores of just this type, and hundreds of other types as fine in their different ways, during the past few weeks alone. It is to be remembered always that this is the spirit they show when wounded, and straight from the most exhausting kind of fighting ever seen, and a long, tiring journey. Heaven help the Hun who meets them when, with all the knowledge they have gleaned of his little ways, they re-enter the fight at the end of comfortable weeks of good living and recuperation. End of Chapter 7